Welcome back to the best podcast on planet Earth. We are Dark Screen Society. I am Seth. We have the queen of horror herself here, Gigi. Say hello.
Hello.
We have the man who fought Nessie and lived to tell the tale, Brian.
Hello.
And we have your movie guy, Chuck, who also happens to be a father, which today is Father's Day. So happy Father's Day, Chuck.
Thank you. Top of the morning to everyone.
Happy Father's Day, Chuck.
Happy Father's Day.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, today we are talking about all things folk horror. And there was a couple of pieces of news that I did find that we didn't get to talk about last week that I wanted to bring up real quick. And I'm sure you guys have heard of some of these already. But we have an Until Dawn movie that was just announced, which is a very popular video game. I don't know if you guys heard about all that. They casted the main actress who is in Hellraiser to play the lead role in it, which is pretty cool. We also have a Lee Cronin new horror film for Blumhouse and Atomic Monster and New Line Cinema. Supposedly, it might be Nightmare on Elm Street. So what do you guys think of that one?
I heard a lot of like speculation that it was Nightmare on Elm Street, which I think would be really awesome. But I'm excited to see. But it's not until like 2026. So I feel like I'm gonna totally forget about it until like later next year.
True. And finally, the last piece of news here is Nocturna Horror Company, which is basically Skydance and Barbara and Annie Muschietti, who did it. They basically created a new company, kind of like Blumhouse's, what they just did with, what's his face?
Atomic Monster.
Yeah, Atomic Monster. So their first film is called They Will Kill You, and it stars Zazie Beetz, and that's all we know so far. But that's coming out in 2025, actually.
Ooh,
That
I like
sounds
that name.
interesting.
We have a bunch of horror indie companies being like created, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Gigi.
Oh no, you're good, Chuck. Go
No,
ahead.
I was just going to say a little more light on the Lee Cronin thing is Blumhouse is just they just picked it up to like produce it, and it makes sense when it's coming out because that will be for Nightmare's 40th. So the timing because I was talking to Paige, who's Nightmare on Elm Street everything, and she said there's been a lot of rumblings behind the scenes that this was coming. So she said it's the first one in 10 years that they believe as fans. So that got me really excited because I would love to see it.
That's exciting.
Do we trust Lee Cronin doing this after Evil Dead Rise? Do you think he can do good with it?
I mean, Evil Dead Rise was well received. I mean, it's not for me, but I mean, it's like a technically well shot film. So I think it comes down to like, is he a fan of the series? And like, if he's a fan, then give him a shot because maybe it's better to have an unknown touch it than because he's not that well known. He only made one movie. You know what I mean?
He's a Cronin.
I'm totally fine with him doing it. I like Evil Dead Rise, as Chuck says, looked really good, but script wasn't probably what killed it. But there's other movie, The Hole or whatever it was called. I thought it was really good.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, give it to a lesser known name. I would rather that.
The Hole. What movie is that?
Yeah.
It's a movie about a hole. I can't remember. It's an Irish.
Oh wait,
an Irish
The Hole in
movie,
the Ground with that little boy.
That's the one. Yeah.
Oh, okay, A Hole in the Ground. I was like, The Hole. I was like, that's from like an early 2000s movie.
That's a Disney Channel movie.
Holes. Let's see how many times we can say hole.
So,
The Hole in the Ground. That's actually funny enough. That's like a folk horror kind of movie. But the Until Dawn movie, what I was gonna say is that one was announced like a while back, and I totally forgot that they were making a movie on it because nothing had been talked about it for a while. So I'm excited that they like announced the cast because when you look at the characters and the cast, like they did such a good job. Even though I didn't play Until Dawn, I played his game The Quarry, but I know that they're like pretty similar. I need to play Until Dawn though.
Until Dawn is significantly better than The Quarry.
Oh yeah, that's what everyone says.
It's so good, yeah, and it's quick too. It's like 6 hours. You can bang it out real quick, and it's fun. I enjoyed it a lot.
All I know is, Chuck, we need to send Lee Cronin our Nightmare on Elm Street ideas.
We do.
Yeah, he needs them. He needs our cast.
I'll send him the whole memo.
Yeah,
send him the
dear
whole
Lee
episode.
Cronin.
Definitely the whole thing.
Well, getting into the meat and bones here, guys. Today we're talking about folk horror, which is one of another favorite genres of ours. And the first thing that I want to talk about is how would you guys define folk horror, and what do you think draws people to this subgenre? Because there's a couple different ways to go about this. So I'm going to start here with you, Gigi. So take us off.
Um, okay, like how I would define folk horror, and I actually like looked this up because when I was like, when we were talking about this being a topic, I was like, honestly, I have no idea. Like, I feel like I know a folk horror movie when I see it, but what does that entail? And I think it mostly has elements with like either like witchcraft, like something kind of like witchy or like paganism, and then always in like a like in a forest, like a wildernessy forest, like rural setting. So I feel like if you have those two components, like that is what screams folk horror to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. What about you, Brian?
Yeah, pretty much exactly what I was going to say. But I would put in there also really lore heavy, but it doesn't always explain all the lore. So you can have to work out some of it yourself. If you've got knowledge of witchcraft, it's maybe a bit easier, but I do not.
No, we all have books in the.
I'm a wizard, not a witch.
You're a wizard, Harry.
Incredible.
Chuck, what are your thoughts?
I think everybody touched on what it is, and it's mostly rural settings. But I love the fact that they go into like paganism, religion, and for different cultures as well, and dig deeply into those things because different places have different witches for different reasons and such. And I just really like to learn about different cultures and what their superstitions are and the things that they're afraid of. I love folk horror.
Yeah, I agree. And to kind of to your point, Gigi, I always see like folk horror movie and it kind of hits me in the face and I know what it is. But like looking it up, it kind of like blends in with like the cryptid episode we did because like La Llorona, like she's technically a folk tale, correct? Like
Yeah.
with that, so like it's hard to kind of like define it, but as long as there's like a forest, there's some type of like creature and a cult that's like praying to that creature, I think that kind of is what makes a folk movie a folk movie.
No, I
Go for
totally,
it.
and I also like that's so funny that you brought that up because when I think folk horror, like I know I think of things like Midsummer or like Blair Witch, where you're like, okay, there's some type of like witchy aspect to it or like ritualistic aspect to it, and it's in this rural setting. But it's really funny that sometimes we don't think of like actual folklore. Like there are things like, urban legends or actual like folklore stories like La Llorona or just other things that aren't coming to me. And it's funny that I don't necessarily think of that as folk horror, even though I guess that would technically qualify as like folk horror. I don't know. But yeah, I totally understood what you're saying.
It's tough. I feel like there's so many different variations of it, but all of it's great. So thank God for folk horror. What are some of the most well-known folk? Wow, I can't speak today, guys. I had too much coffee already. Fuck. What are some of the fuck horror? What are some of the most well-known folk horror movies, and why do we love them? It's like dog shoulders all over again.
Oh, our
man.
own folklore.
Yeah. Obviously we have The Witch. That's like one of the most popular ones I think you can start off with.
The Vavitch.
The Vavitch?
The Witch, yeah.
What is it?
Midsummer.
No, it's the
Midsommar.
Witch. I just don't like that they did it like the Vavitch. So I only ever call it, just like Mithrigan, I only ever call it Vavitch.
The
Bitch.
Midsommar, obviously. I think Sleepy Hollow counts as like a more well-known, the one with Johnny Depp. No?
Yeah, sort of, kind of, maybe.
Maybe,
love
or
that movie.
would that be like fairy tale?
Yeah, I thought that
I
was
don't
more
know,
like a
like
fairy tale.
fantasy. Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
The Wicker Man.
The Wicker Man. We have the
Oh
Wicker
yeah,
Man.
I've never seen the Wicker Man.
You know what, Chuck? Just go straight into it because that's all I can think of. So let's
Don't-
hear some
Don't
of your-
Don't watch the Nicolas Cage one.
Do watch the Nicolas Cage one.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, that one slaps.
That's the only
It's
one that
all-
exists. Not the
it's
brilliant
all right.
British one.
It's hilarious.
The bees,
Well-
not the bees.
The bees.
I need to watch it
It's so
tonight
good.
now. Well, Seth, I can't believe you did not mention the Blair Witch Project.
Oh yeah,
I
that's
feel
a
like
big
that
one.
is like I
That's a
I
big
feel like
one.
that's like when people think folk horror, I feel like they think the Blair Witch Project. And the witch though. That's fair.
I think the
I
Blair
don't
Witch
think of.
Project's.
Sorry,
Go ahead, Brian.
obviously, I always think it Blair Witch is just a found footage film. So never. It wasn't until I was looking through for some homework for this that it came on the top of every list. And I was like, oh, yeah, of course it's a folk horror. It's just
Yeah.
because the way it's shot, it never instantly
Yeah.
popped into my head as it being a folk horror. But I was like, yeah, 100%. So that's
And they
why it
have
just
those-
stuck to my mind.
They have those creepy little figurines in the trees, and I feel like that alone is a full core thing.
This is so random. This has nothing to do with folk horror, but you said found footage, and I needed to share this little tidbit with you guys and all horror lovers. But did you know that Oculus, like Mike Flanagan's Oculus, that he originally had written it and all the studios wanted it, like he had pitched it in 2006, and all the studios were like, oh, if you make it a found footage, we'll totally pick it up. And he was like, no, I don't want this movie to be a found footage, which is why it came out like in 2013 instead. Anyways, that's a little fact I just learned like yesterday. So
So
Yeah,
Tyler,
pretty cool.
Tyler, if you're listening, there's your next video.
there,
right?
there you go. Now you know.
That's
Well,
pretty cool.
I'm glad he stuck to his guns, because that, as a found footage movie, would not have been it.
No, I think so
Although saying
too.
that, I
so-
would love a Mike Flanagan found footage movie.
Oh God, yes.
Imagine
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that'd be so good.
I don't feel like not sleeping for the rest of my life, so I'm good on that. Could you imagine those jump scares with just a camera looking down the hall? Yeah, no, I'm good on that. Does anybody else have any other well-known folk horrors that you want to bring up before we continue on?
I made a
Um,
wee list of foreign ones that maybe don't get thought of as much.
Oh, yeah.
So the Wailing, I would say that's a folk horror.
Mm.
Oh
The
yeah,
Medium,
totally.
Medium is a folk
Mm.
horror, and
Yep.
I'm not sure if everyone here's seen it, but Impetigore as well. I would say
I
that's
haven't seen it.
so
They're-
good. Everyone needs to watch it.
All fantastic films.
Yeah.
Is
like
that
all of
Joko
them.
Anwar?
Yes.
I think so. Oh, his new show came out.
Yeah, on Netflix.
It's on
It's supposed
Netflix
to be
now.
great.
Yeah, I mean it's Joko Anwar, but
Is this where we're doing our favorites, or just ones we think people need to see?
I
This
guess
is
like
where-
Just the most famous
well-known.
ones.
Or the most famous ones? That's what I thought. Yeah, probably. I think we covered all that. There's been
Yeah.
a lot more. There's been like a big resurgence of it, and I think Blair Witch was. I didn't look at it that way neither, Brian. I looked at it as found footage, but it is. I think it's just a more modern take. That's why you don't associate it with it, because it's not from the 1800 rural countryside.
Yeah.
But I agree with you 100%.
I feel like also The Ritual now I think is like a more well-known. I think
Yeah.
when
I
it first
love
came
that
out,
movie.
yeah, I think sometimes
Ritual.
people are like counted as like it's like what do you call it? Like what's that word? Why can't I think? Not underappreciated,
Underrated.
underrated. There you go. Underrated. And I'm like, no, I feel like everybody knows of The Ritual.
They do now.
I think so now, yeah.
It's
That
it's
movie's
gained.
fantastic.
It's fantastic. Same with Apostles, been getting a lot of steam too, which is another fantastic one.
Dan
I never
Stevens.
saw it. Yeah, Dan
Go
Stevens
off
is in
my
that.
lists of
Yeah.
lesser known ones by
Yeah.
Apostle.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck. Always jumping the gun, ruining our list here.
That's all right. That's so good.
That's why we have them.
Right?
I'm so
Well,
excited.
that brings us to the next topic here, which is what are some of the folk horror movies that we like that don't get enough love? And we'll go back to you, Brian, because I know you started off with a couple foreign horrors. Were there any others that you wanted to list off?
Yeah, so I'll start with a couple of foreign ones that are maybe not so well known. I'm going to Elementary, which is also known as like The Devil and the Blacksmith, I think it's called, which
Mm.
is brilliant. I think it's a Basque horror, and it should be on Tubi. But like the visuals in that are amazing. It's got loads of backstory. 100% recommend checking that out.
Wait,
Also,
what's it called?
Elementary.
Oh, okay.
I feel like I've seen it on Netflix before, and I always pass it, but I've heard it's good.
Well, yeah, I did as well, and I was just like, oh, why not? Has a cool looking devil in the picture, so
Mhm.
I'll just try it, and it was so good. Another one I think is really good is Poison for the Fairies, which is a Mexican, I think, horror. about two little girls. One girl convinces the other that she's a witch, tries to get her to join in her witchy activities, and it gets pretty dark at the end, which
Oh,
again is good. And a dark song, are we classing that as a folk horror? Came up on Google when I googled.
Oh yeah, I think so because I mean I haven't seen it, but I know that it's like maybe
Like
like
it's
a cult.
very ritualistic. Like
Yeah, like
horror.
I think it might cross into like a cult rather than like folk, but I think it still has like themes of it.
Okay, just one last for fun then. She Will, which is a Scottish witch horror movie.
what's it
What do you
called?
know about Scottish?
She Will.
She will. Oh, I should check it out. Yeah, what do you know about the Scottish people?
Yeah. What?
I'm a half Scottish.
I feel like
Also,
Brian's.
also the other half Scottish as well.
If we keep the joke up, Brian's just gonna be like one day just like disappears. He's like, "Oh, I left. I'm done with you guys."
I've also never heard of like any of those except for one of them, so I'm excited
That's what I do here.
to watch those. Yeah,
I wanna
dang, that's why we
I want
keep
to see
you.
that Tubi one is for me. That might be my Father's Day movie today, actually.
Which Tubi one?
The one that he mentioned that I can't say the name, and I'm not going to attempt to say the name.
Elementary.
Aramente.
Yeah,
Oh.
that one.
Oh, this whole time I thought it was saying elementary. So okay.
Yeah, that's the only reason I didn't do a video on TikTok, because I know all captions to be like elementary. I'm like, no.
A lot of editing. Gigi, what about you?
Lesser known, I would have to say Pyewacket. I think that's like nobody ever talks about Pyewacket. That's a great folk horror. And then I mean, I guess it's like I feel like it's middle tier known in like the horror community, but The Empty Man. I think The Empty Man is
Oh, that's a good one.
that's
I
a
love, I love
that's a
that
freaking
film.
great
Yeah.
one. And I mean, it's got an atrocious name. Like I thought it was going to be like so bad, but I was like surprised at how much I really liked it. And then that's really all I can like think of right now. Those two that didn't get a lot of love. Yeah, those would be my two votes.
I like that. I had Pyewacket as well. I think that movie's awesome. And then I also had Wretched, I think it's called.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, yeah.
another like witch movie that's really, really cool and really creepy. I mean, that ending is terrifying. So if you guys haven't seen that one, highly recommend Wretched.
That one's on Netflix
Ne-
now.
Yeah, that one's on Netflix now.
Nice.
So definitely check that one out. And Chuck, what about you?
I have a couple that are pretty. I mean, they're kind of similar movies, but I love them both equally. And there's a film called Hagazusa, and it's an incredibly slow burn. But I feel the payoff is incredible. And it's a witch movie, but a different take on a witch film. And then there's another one called You Won't Be Alone, which is
So good.
basically the same subject matter, just done in a different way. And it's slow and methodical, but at the same time, it also goes extremely hard. And it's just a brilliantly well done film, technical level, the way that it's shot. And these other ones, I think, might be like a little bit more well known because I think people seen them, but they deserve love. And that's Enos Men, which I think is absolutely fantastic. And maybe my favorite folk horror of all time, and that's A24's Lamb. And I feel like that's the A24 movie that doesn't get enough love. And I think the poster really throws it off, and people are just like, oh, what is this? I'm not going to watch this. But I think it's an absolutely, it's a fucking brilliant movie. I love it so much.
It's a mind fuck, Chuck. That ending, I was like, what did I just watch?
I've never seen Lamb.
It's so weird, Gigi. Like it's
So
just
weird.
weird, and I've never seen anything like it. Like it's that weird, but it's just so weird that it's brilliant. And I would also hate myself if I didn't mention Kill List with Neil Maskell. And it kind of starts out as like an actioneer about this guy that gets pulled back into a life of crime, and it may go off the rails more than anything I've seen in a very, very long time into this folk madness. And it's just an absolutely fantastic film.
Yeah, I love Kill List. I had it actually in my well-known horrors, but I forgot to mention it, so I'm glad you brought it up. It's spectacular.
You're welcome.
What's that one about? I haven't heard of that.
So it's a hitman that his last job was botched, so he gets given another chance to. I think it's 3 people he has to kill. I can't remember exactly. It's been a while ago.
It is.
But he goes down quite a path, and you won't be able to see what happens coming at all.
That sounds
Never.
cool.
So good.
And it's so methodically well done because they wrap you up into him just having like the absolute disgust to get sucked back into this life, and a certain amount of events happen. And when you start picking up on what's happening, like this malevolent element comes into it. But like when it hits and goes, like it literally, like when people say, oh, so jaw dropping, like it has like a Sixth Sense twist
Ooh.
to it. Like I mean, it's a banger of a twist. Or like The Others, 10 out of 10 film, The Others twist.
Very twisty.
Kill List is something you should move up on your priority list. Like it's a really good fucking movie.
100%.
Yeah, I've heard about it before, and I've seen like the picture, like the stick thing or whatever. But I just know I didn't really like know what it was about, so that's cool.
Yeah, I need to check that out for sure. So, other subgenres have some like specific tropes here. You know, like found footage. There's always a camera glitch. Can you guys think of any folk horror tropes that you like or dislike with folk horror? And we'll start back with you here, Chuck.
I don't know if I guess it's a trope, but I think a lot of folk horror films hate children because there's a lot of a lot of them have similar particular unalivings of the small ones. But I think that was very, like in Norse mythology and like old witch folklore. If the mom had it, the kid had it, and they didn't want the bloodline to continue. So there's a lot of that. So I do see that as like a prevalent topic that's talked about in a lot of folk horror movies. But folk horror is one of the only subgenres of horror that like that in South Korea, like South Korean films, like almost every folk horror movie I've watched, like I've enjoyed it. Like it's hard to make like a bad folk, like they put a lot of effort into it because of the subject matter and the folklore and everything behind it. But yeah, that would be the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of hard because I feel like with folk horror we haven't had that much. It seems like we have, but what we have gotten has been like excellent. So it's kind of hard to find some like horrible tropes. The only one I can think of, because it kind of like happens in The Watchers, which is, this isn't a spoiler, but like when their equipment stops working in the middle of the forest, like why doesn't anybody ever have a compass? Like,
Yeah.
what are we doing here? Like, if you're going, into
Do
the
you have a
wilderness,
compass?
well, I'd bring one with me into the forest. Okay. Look up at the stars or some shit. But they always get lost and disoriented, but they never bring the right stuff. And that's the one trope that I'm just like, I get it, but also let's come up with a different way to like push the story along.
They had a compass in Yellow Brick Road. It just didn't work very well from what they were dealing with. It just literally sent them walking in circles.
Yeah, that's like like in Annihilation too. It's like, oh, it was all like electromagnetic-y, and I'm only thinking about that because I literally
Yeah.
just watched it. So it was like, oh, it didn't work, But yeah.
I think it'd be funny if they like set up like a cell blocking tower or something like that in the middle of the forest, and you just like stumble upon that, and you're like, oh, so that's what's blocking my signal.
I feel like with folk horror, like, and they're not even really tropes. I guess they're like elements to it. I like love all of them. Like, I love that they're in the forest. Like, I feel like folk horror is definitely like one of like like Chuck said, like it's just a subgenre that I gravitate towards, because even if they're just like okay, I'm like, oh, I still enjoyed, like, for the most part, because they're just very like atmospheric and like foreboding, and like it's usually very beautiful and stuff. Like the more would, I guess, be classed as a folk horror, and it's just like the setting is always so pretty. But the one trope that I cannot stand, that I feel like happens in a lot of folk horror, is some type of animal killing. I hate that because I don't like any type of animal killing deaths in movies. And that's always like a thing because they have to like sacrifice, or I don't know, it's just like a creepy imagery. And I'm like, let's just leave that out.
Yeah, if they kill a dog, I'm out. I'm done.
No, exactly.
You can't hurt a puppy.
Exactly.
Brian?
I don't know if it's tropey, but I think for a lot of people, the reason they don't watch folk horror is because it's quite slow burn. And we know that even some of the action-packed films we recommend people like us, boring, nothing happens. So because there's so much lore, and they could go 20, 30 minutes with no dialogue, like in the film Chuck mentioned earlier, a lot of people would be like, that's not for me. personally, I love that slow burn, and as you say, with the atmosphere, and there's never really like a soundtrack. It's just eerie sounds, which is great, and it gets under the skin. But I can imagine most people, or not most people, a lot of people don't enjoy that part of folk horror. How long it takes to get to the whatever scary bit.
That's fair.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I want to say one last thing too about it is like Gigi, you brought up it being in like forests and like that whole setting and just creating like a vibe. And I feel like I gravitate towards that too. Like when I actually did like a road trip from Arizona all the way up the Oregon coast and like down the center of Oregon, and like driving through like the forest and like being surrounded by that, it's like such a cool feeling. And I love being immersed in that when it comes to like folk horror, like, you know, the fog, the creepiness, it just feels like a
Yeah.
horror movie. And I love that.
Exactly. And it feels, because I feel like a lot of people that like love horror movies, I feel like 99.9% of us also like Halloween and fall
Mhm.
time. And it's very like reminiscent of that, where there's like candles and it just feels very like
Yeah.
cozy but creepy. I like that.
Get me
I
out of the
also
seat.
I also
Yeah.
think with the natural backdrop, because most of them are shot on location somewhere in the forest or wherever. I think that gives them a lot more ability to do a lot more cooler things with less of a budget, because they have that
Yeah.
big backdrop that they can, put shadows behind trees or crack sticks or whatever it is. I think it works very well. And that's why I think a lot of them are, quality films, because they're not fighting that budget to put some crazy CGI in it or whatever they're doing.
Before we continue on, it wouldn't be a podcast if we didn't mention this. Is Frogman folk horror because he's got a flute?
That's the reason.
It's the
I
reason. No.
I mean, I guess that would be like maybe, because that's like kind of, I think it blurs the line between like cryptid, because I think cryptid would be its own subgenre
Yeah.
than like
Yeah,
folk
I would
horror.
say because there's a big
Eh,
festival around it, it's probably not folk horror because there's too many people know about it. Whereas folk horror to me feels like a small little town knows about it, but everybody knows about Loveland Frogman.
Yeah, and it would be
They do
like
now.
more like witchy, like just more that kind of vibe rather than just like a creature, you know?
Yeah. I just thought because he was a wizard, but you know,
You're like, I really want it to be.
I really want it to be. What are some folk horror movies that people love, but you guys really couldn't get into? And I'll start with you, Gigi.
Um, I don't even really necessarily know if like people love this movie, but I do see it recommended a lot. Did you guys ever watch the movie In the Earth? I think it's on Hulu. And I guess it would be kind of classed as like a folk slash like eco horror. And I truly hated it. Like I watched it and I was like, I did not like a single part of this movie. I mean, other than the fact that it was like in a pretty atmosphere. But if you've ever seen that, that and then probably uh I don't even know if people like this either, but Antlers, that's another one. I think that sucked and it could have been so good. And I love Guillermo del Toro, but that was just
That
not
ain't
one of
it,
his best. Yeah.
Brian.
So probably those two.
Similar, I don't think there's any folk horror I've seen that I didn't at least like. But when I was doing research for this, Men came up as a folk horror, and I haven't seen that, but I also feel like I might not like it. Don't know why. It just doesn't appeal to me at all.
Because
Similar
men.
to
Just
Men,
kidding.
Men are the worst.
Men suck.
Similar to Lamb. I've not seen Lamb, but it doesn't appeal to my taste.
I've never
I
seen Men
think
either.
I think you'll enjoy Men, Brian.
Okay, I'll have to try Men just for you.
No, I think it's
Yeah, don't knock it till
fantastic.
you try it, Brian. Okay.
But no, I just think kind of the way it's shot, the way it plays out is something that you would be into, because you'll get it. I think Men's fantastic.
What about you, Chuck? Then what's one that you
The most overrated folk horror film of all time, Midsummer.
Oh,
What else you
elaborate.
like about it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
elaborate,
can't.
please.
Back it up. Just kidding.
I find. I mean, like, if I had to rate it, I'd probably rate it maybe like a 5 out of 10. I think it's overly
Oh.
too long. I think it's overly too long in the first half, and I love slow burns, but like it just none of it resonates with me. I find it overly pretentious, and I think it just with the A24 on it, I think it just got completely and totally overhyped because it was like something new to the public, but I don't think it's as good as people say it is good. I don't know. It's just, and I that it's the kind. It's crazy because that in Hereditary are two movies that I should love because that's my kind of movie. They're weird, they're long, they have story to them, and like for some reason they just don't. It just doesn't hit for me at all. So
That's
I
that's
feel
fair.
like, do you just hate Ari Aster because you don't like Hereditary either?
um no, but I don't. And I don't hate it, but I just don't love it like other people love it. Hereditary falls into a different category for me because that fell to the hype because I seen it 3 weeks after it was released. So like I was like wanted to be blown away and I wasn't. Um, but Something Strange About the Johnsons is a 30-minute absolute masterpiece. So that's why I still keep Ari Aster on my catalog because I know he's capable of making things that I like. So
That
that's
was
also
Ari
why,
Aster?
yeah, and that
I
yeah.
did not know that.
And that's
That's so
also
funny.
why I haven't watched Beau is Afraid because of our tainted relationship. Like I want to see it. I think that's a kind of weird movie that's made for a guy like me, but I'm scared.
I've
That's
been
one
putting it off too.
That's one Ari
Yeah.
Aster movie I did not like, but I think
Yeah.
he actually that one. I mean, if you think Midsummer is like overly pretentious, Beau is Afraid. I literally like he was just like throwing shit at the wall and was like, "Let's see what sticks, and I'll see if people eat it up." Because I did not like Beau is Afraid, but I know some people like really loved it, but it was like way too out there for me. But
I
I
I
like
never
Midsummer.
I never saw it because in theaters, like I just got Wednesday and she was just a puppy and it was like like 3.5 hour long movie. So I never got to see it in theaters because like I can't leave her alone for that long. It's on Amazon, but I just like I haven't gotten around to it for some reason. I want to
Yeah,
watch it, but
it's very rare for me too to not like two films from the same director, but still have like because I have tons of hope for him because I do think he's a competent filmmaker.
Mhm.
Um, so like I don't completely write him off. You know what I mean? Like I think that there's brilliant things coming out of him.
yeah. For me, the only like kind of what Brian was saying, the only film that I think that I truly don't really like that's full core is Antlers as well, Gigi. I thought like the opening sequence with the drone shot of it just completely foggy, like set the tone. I was like, oh, this is gonna be sweet. And
Mhm.
like besides the monster design, it was just very boring. And like,
It's boring. Yeah.
yeah, it does nothing for me. So I was not a fan of Antlers.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. I feel like it had so much potential.
Don't you're not listening to this, Guillermo. We still love you.
Yeah, we still love you, Guillermo, okay?
We still love you. Speaking of Guillermo, is Pan's Labyrinth, would that be considered folk?
No, I think that's
No,
like
it'd
like
be a more
fantasy.
fantasy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
fantasy. Okay.
like fantasy horror.
Trying to think outside the box here because I feel like there's others. Like when I was looking up and doing research, like Hereditary came up as one that was listed as folk horror.
Yeah, I feel like I mean, okay, I think it's fair that some of these pop up because when we think about, for example, like Jurassic Park, we're always like, "Oh, this is classed as a horror movie," even though it is like action, like fantasy, sci-fi or whatever it may be. But I think because there are certain elements of folk horror in it, like with it having to do with like I don't know, like paganism type of like devilish type of stuff. I don't even can't think of a word, but and then it's like more in like a rural area. I think that's why people class it, but I wouldn't necessarily class it. I would more class it as like a cult.
Yeah, I will say. Oh, go ahead, Brian. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're looking for an absolutely bonkers folk horror movie, I don't know if I can recommend it because I don't understand it. But I reckon if you watch the first 2 minutes, you'll know if it's for you or not. But it's a movie called November. I think it's an Estonian black and white horror film.
Ooh,
Honestly, like if I don't know where it's shown, but just check out the first 2 minutes. It is batshit insane, and you'll know if it's for you. I think Chuck will probably appreciate it because he likes the batshit insane stuff. But not sure about the other two.
November. I
Yeah,
like the title.
Oh, the poster.
yeah.
yeah,
Ooh.
yeah. I will say, Gigi, going back to our convo earlier, because we're talking about horror films that people can get into. The Watchers is a great folk horror film that
Yes.
is getting way too much hate after I saw it last night, and I wanted to bring this up because people need to go see it. It's fantastic.
Yes. It's really good. And like we were discussing it now. Chuck hasn't seen it, and like we're not going to give spoilers
No,
because it only's been out for like a little bit. Brian's read the book, but it's definitely like folk horror, like mythology. But I think because that what's like revealed, people maybe are just like turned off by that. But I hear a lot of people saying that like they spoon feed the like
plot.
explanations to you, but I personally didn't think that they did. I felt like it was like just enough and maybe just a little bit like maybe a little bit over the edge, but nothing where I'm just like I feel insulted that like they would think that we were dumb, like how I felt in Blumhouse when I was like, why do you have this lady here that's like narrating us like the entire like script of the story? So
Oh,
I
for
don't know. I thought
imaginary. Yeah,
I will freaking defend the Watchers until the end of time.
you and me
Paid.
both. All right, we're paid shills.
I know. Paid
I think
ad.
I think it's getting a bad rap because people don't want to admit that they're wrong, and I think it got unfairly judged for how they feel about her father's movies because he had a couple of
Yes.
Yeah,
duds, and I think they went into it with that perception, but then maybe liked it and just don't want to build it up just to not like be wrong, and I think that's really unfair. I haven't seen it, but I heard a lot every single when it was first coming out, every single tweet or message you seen is, hope she doesn't mess it up like her father or blah 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 blah. So I think that's kind of unfair to her or the film in
If
general.
I was a Shauna, that would be my freaking villain origin story. I'd be
yeah,
like, "This is my project!" Like, I'd
yeah.
be so mad. It's just really upsetting that a lot of people, like, I feel like a lot of like male, uh, like people that follow in the footsteps of like their fathers, or like whether they're like actors or filmmakers, they don't get the same comparison as like Ishana is. Like, for example, like the Cronenbergs. I do think that it happened with like Brandon that he gets like, kind of related to his dad a lot, or it's like, oh, David Cronenberg's son, blah, blah, but nowhere near the way Ishana Night Shyamalan is getting compared to her dad. And people are even like introducing the movie, like, oh, this is M. Night Shyamalan's daughter. I'm like, say her fucking name. It's Ishana. Like, it's
Yeah.
not
Right.
like when people introduce like Brandon's movies, they're not like, oh, this is David Cronenberg's son. I'm like, I just feel like they're not putting enough respect on her as a filmmaker. So
That's a
Yeah.
very fair statement. It's how nepotism could work against
yes,
you instead of for you. I mean, I will say
exactly.
David Cronenberg has an exceptionally better catalog than M. Night.
Oh, a
So
hundred
so
Yeah.
percent.
but I'm saying, but that's maybe why they don't have anything to say, oh, well, his genes are going to be bad because he didn't make a film like Old or The Village, So I
Yeah.
think that's just how people have that perspective. But uh, I bet you if she would have shot it under a surname, that people would be going crazy about that movie if her name wasn't on it. It's like
Yeah.
she's like the Metallica load of horror films.
Listen, it's
Yeah.
2024. Somebody would have found out who it was.
Yeah.
there's private detectives out there scouring Twitter. But
Yeah.
I,
So that's my
yeah,
piece.
yeah, I agree with all of you, and it's kind of shitty because like M Night's known for his like twists and like that's like one of his things, but like people hold that against him. Like for Trap, what if there is no twist? Like people are gonna just like hate on that film, because his name's attached to it and his whole family. Like I feel like that's really sad, and I'm kind of nervous for his other daughter, who's the singer in Trap, because they're putting out like an album for her. Like she's a legit singer and everything, and I have a feeling people are just gonna bash it just for the hell of it, and I think that's just so shitty.
Yeah, but for the same respect that people shit on him and things that he made, there's the other half of people that will defend him to the death and even love his lesser movies that a lot of people don't like. He's a very polarizing filmmaker.
Yeah,
Like
I'm one of
Yeah.
those people.
Yeah.
I
yeah,
actually really like Old. I think, other than the dialogue, I think Old is a really good movie.
Thank you. I will
Shout out to
defend
Happening.
Old. I think I agree with like the dialogue, but like what is revealed at the end, I was like, oh, this is actually really smart. Like very plausible.
Yeah, I'm a
I'll
Happening
watch
user.
anything with his name on it because he swings for the fences, and I love that about a filmmaker. Like he's puts his vision out there, and however it's received, but he at least doesn't hold back, and I respect that about him.
I
Yeah.
agree. To all you people who hate the Happening, before we continue, it's great. Okay.
I've actually
Um,
never seen it happening. Only because it got so like bad reviews that I was like, oh, I'll just keep putting it off.
It's true.
yeah, I mean, it's not true. Okay. They did it on purpose. It's fine. Moving on here. Is there any upcoming folk horror movies coming out this year that you guys are excited for? I tried to do some research and couldn't really find any unless like Nosferatu counts as that, but it's not because it's more vampire type deal. So I don't know if you guys found any that you want to recommend. So I'll pass the baton to you, Chuck.
To me,
Yes, sir.
The only one I found, and I don't know if it's technically folk horror, but it has a folk background to it, but it's a Western, is it's called Thine Ears Shall Bleed. And it's about this preacher and his family going across the countryside, and they hear this voice off a mountain, and he thinks that it's God. And so they start literally worshiping it. And then obviously things go bad, but I guess it infiltrates through your ears to like take over people's spirits. But the only reason I brought it up is there's a few things in the trailer that allude to what it is would fall under folk horror. But it's the first one that I found that like really is as close as it can get, because I haven't seen anything else that I was super excited about that's just straight up folk horror.
Yeah.
Brian?
So there's one I've seen called Falling Stars, which I saw at a festival here, which is about falling stars are actually witches coming to Earth. Three brothers go to try and find the body of one that got shot. I think a lot of people won't like it because it's quite slow and takes a while to get to the story, but I think probably most people here will really love it. So it's definitely worth checking out. And one that came up on Google that I don't know anything about, but I know Chuck's mentioned in the past, is Starve Acre, I think it's called.
I was just
Yeah, I was
mad at
just gonna say
myself
that.
for not saying it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know anything about it, just that it came up on Google as upcoming folk horror for me.
The plot is, are you ready? When their son starts acting strangely, a couple unwittingly allow dark and sinister forces into their home, awakening a long dormant ancient evil rooted deep in the countryside. Nice. The
Sold.
poster looks sick.
What's that one called again?
Starve Acre.
Mhm.
That sounds sick. When's that coming out?
It does not have a release date yet.
In the UK, it has a theatrical release of September 6th, but nothing for the US.
Fantastic Fest,
So,
if you're listening.
Brian.
Pick it
Yeah,
up.
I know.
Kind of sounds like The Dark and the Wicked.
Also
Oh, yeah.
kind of sounds a little bit like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air when you first started saying that.
Jesus. That was one I was gonna bring up too. And one that I think actually comes out like next week. Oh no, not next week, in like 2 weeks. The Devil's Bath. That one I guess
Dreadful.
would be like folk horror. And it's
Agreed.
like, yeah, that one's like 18th century and like Austria, and it looks very eerie and foreboding based on like the trailer. And right now it's kind of got like the average rating for it is 3.5 on Letterbox, but like when you like look at like the little levels or whatever, most of the ratings are a 4. So
Ooh,
intrigued in that one.
that sounds pretty cool. Well,
Yeah.
there's a
On
couple of things
Shudder.
to look.
And then the
I
one
think
was
it-
it?
I think it comes out next Friday.
On
Yeah,
Shudder,
June 28th. I think on Shutter,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
The Falling Stars movie, Brian, me and Justin are gonna go see that at
Good.
Chattanooga Film Festival. I was so excited.
Definitely worth it.
Yeah. I just
I'm
said we were.
jealous.
There's a young boy in it. I think he's going to be a star. I think it's he.
A
Apologies
falling
if-
star?
Yeah, apologies if he's watching it. But,
He's a
I tried to-
star.
I tried to tag him and say that, but he doesn't have tags turned on Instagram.
Oh, damn.
Well, any other films that you guys want to bring up, or is that pretty much the gist of it?
I think that's it. Like I was looking like I have
Hard.
like my little running list, and that's surprising. Like I feel like folk horror is just such a thing that hits, like a subgenre that, like we said, I mean, even when it's like mid, it's still watchable. So,
Yeah.
but really not a lot coming out. But who
Um,
knows? Maybe.
Are there any movies that you guys watched last night that you guys wanted to talk about?
I actually, handy you've said that because I watched something that probably would be classed as a folk horror, but I just
Ooh.
completely blanked on it. It's called Sorcery, which is Chilean, I believe. It's only just out in the UK theaters now. I don't know what the wide release is like, but it's they call them Indians in the movie. So I know that's not what we'd call them here, but Germans encroach on their land and then they have to work for the Germans. They wake up one morning, all the sheep are dead in the field with some kind of Indian rope around their necks. So the German guy gets his dogs to attack the dad of the family
Oh.
and kill him, and then it turns into the dark magic from there. And it's It's good. I'm still kind of processing it, so I don't know if I love it or not, but it's definitely worth
Sounds
checking out.
interesting.
Yeah, I like the poster on here.
Gigi, did you watch anything last night you want to talk about?
No, I literally like started Exuma and then I got sleepy and I fell asleep and
Yeah.
I just was asleep for the rest of the night. So nope. So I'm gonna finish watching that today. I think I'm just gonna watch movies. My AC is broken and I don't want to do anything in this 95-degree weather. So I'll just sit and barely move.
Oh no. Hopefully that gets fixed soon. That's always the worst.
I know it's awful.
Chad?
It is. I didn't watch anything last night. I didn't get to it because of my kids, but I found a movie when I was digging, and it's called Without Name. It's from 2016, and I've never heard of it. But it's about a land surveyor that gets this assignment to go measure like these sounds that are coming from a forest. And it turns into like this supernatural environment that he gets sucked into. But like when I read about it, it said terrifying mushroom acid trip of a horror movie. And I was just like, and it's got really, really good reviews, and it has all my points: slow burn, haunting, pay attention. So I may probably throw that on today at some point in time, but that's it.
That tagline sounds great. You're just like, son of a bitch, I'm in.
Yeah, I'm in.
Gigi,
That sounds
did you
pretty good.
ever finish The Shallows or start it?
No, I never even started it. I should really I'm always like, "Oh, I'm gonna
Come on.
watch these movies," and then I end up I mean, spending like 16 hours on these graphics that I said like 50 to you guys, and I'm like, "Are these good?"
They're so good.
They are
They're
great.
so
So
good.
I finished them, so I think I am going to just actually watch movies. So maybe I'll finish Exuma and then start The Shallows.
I would. Me and Brian say do it. For me, I watched The Watchers and Inside Out last night. Inside Out 2.
Oh.
I did a double feature at the theaters, which was honestly really nice. So I mixed my horror with some tears, because Inside Out 2 is actually really like adorable, and they have this new like emotion, anxiety, and I was like, this is literally me. This is like this movie is for me, and I loved every minute of it. I did shed a tear, so
Oh, I heard it's great.
it is really good. Pixar just knows how to make people cry and just make great emotional movies for like both kids and for adults.
That's why I can't watch them.
I know.
I hate feeling.
I felt all the emotions last night. Sad, happy, scared. It was great. Well, that's a wrap on today's episode, guys. You can find Dark Screen Society on all social media platforms, and be sure to like, comment, rate, and subscribe where you listen. As always, stay haunting, scare the night away, and we love you guys.
I like that one. Bye.
I like that. Scare the night away.
Yeah.
That's a good one.